On this week's segment of IGN Unfiltered with Brian Fargo, the Interplay founder talks about his post-Interplay days, forming inXile, having huge success on Kickstarter, and much more. Here it is. And that something else is inXile, which you founded in 2002.
That's right. That's right.
I suppose the name has a very personal
Yeah.
touch on that.
Well, so that came about. We were going to the trade show in 2002, or I think it's 2002, and I couldn't get a business card unless I had a name of a company.
Yeah.
And so we're like, okay, came up with The Workshop. That was the name of the company. Just made one up so we could print it up. And they said, well, what do you want for your title to be? And I went, oh, Leader in Exile, right? Just as a joke. And so I went to them handing out the cards. And then at the show, people started coming up to me going, oh, I heard about your card. Let me get one. And so after had 2 or 3 people sort of proactively hunt me down to get one of these cards, I thought, well, maybe we're onto something here. And that's how the name came about.
That's a cool story.
Yeah.
How fun was it for you to bring back the Bard's Tale in 2004 on the PS2, original Xbox, PC?
Well, I had a blast making that game, and I mean that was as you know, we took a very different turn on that, right? So I didn't have the copyright to use for the Bard's Tale, but I liked the character, and we wanted to do something like we liked the stuff that Snowblind was doing with their engine, right?
Top-down action RPG,
yeah, like
dungeon
Dark
crawler.
Alliance, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of liked what was being done with Dark Alliance, and financing there. It had to be console if I was going to get any financing at all. So more action-oriented bent, but I didn't want to do a straight-up Dark Alliance. I wanted to give our taste of humor with it, and so I still sometimes I'll watch YouTube videos of some places in Bard's Tale that I've forgotten about, and it's just so funny. I just some of the stuff in there is just so clever and witty. I love it.
You set the Kickstarter record for fastest project to $1 million.
Yeah.
With Torment, which Tides of Numenera, which as we record
Yeah.
just released. How was the experience of not having to answer to any corporate overlord or any person upstairs that was telling you to do stuff?
Well, I think as a creative person, I think there's 2 important factors to me, right? Is that you're doing what you want to do, right? That's one part that's not easier said than done.
Sure.
But as important is that you're doing it the way you want to do it, right? Because you could be working on it, but be made to do it in a way that isn't with your style. And so that was the best part. So for me, with both those projects, we were actually having fun making games again, and that we could be nimble and making adjustments of something that felt right or didn't feel right without fear of not being paid, right? So, I mean, because it's the ultimate honor system, right? Which is our backers are like, here you go make the game, please deliver, don't let us down. And so, we like that, and we now we're 2 for 2. We've come up with good quality products, so keep it going.
Yeah, Wasteland 2 was actually before that. That game turned out absolutely great.
Yeah.
How did it feel to get that back and bring that back?
Well, that one was also especially nice. I mean, kind of the serendipity of the things that put me on the map were Bard's Tale and Wasteland, and here I am back with Bard's Tale and Wasteland, right? So I like that, and EA was great. I mean, people give EA a hard time, but you know what? They're a great company to deal with. They're very professional, and they're like, yeah, we're not going to use it, and I strike a deal to use the copyright, and that what was allowed me to do a proper Wasteland sequel, and now a proper Bard's Tale sequel too. So that was a lot of fun, and then kind of as we sat and going over all the material and remember the little nuances of it all, and we put a lot of things in Wasteland 2 where you don't have to have played the first one, but if you did, there's some great little Easter eggs and little inside jokes that are very funny.
Well, you mentioned bringing those back, but now we've got Wasteland 3 also.
Yeah, we're just warming up.
Yeah, what can you tell us about Wasteland 3?
Well, so we're very happy with the way Wasteland 2 came out, but we had to invent a lot of systems and how things were going to work. And so now we're like, okay, we know what things really felt good and things that didn't, and now we're able to start building upon something and not, because Wasteland 2 was really starting from scratch. You couldn't build off of Wasteland 1. It was a different
25
world.
years ago.
Right,
yeah.
right. So that not as useful. This is really useful. So now we're able to focus even more so on the writing and on the nuances and on the animation. And the thing that I'm most excited about with that, other than just sort of like we want to be the best post-apocalyptic RPG, no doubt about it. And we're, like I said, I got the whole writing team from Torment, and some of those guys worked out on Fallout New Vegas. I mean, so we got a great group, but also multiplayer, which I think is fascinating. And again, single-player narrative experience, you won't even know multiplayer is there, so don't worry about it. Yeah. But we get that, right? But there is a time, and Divinity Original Sin shows that it can be fun to play with your friend, but I really want to focus on what it means to play with your friend, not like, okay, you attack, I attack, or, I have the key and you have the lock, and but like from a narrative perspective. And so that's something where I want to push the craft of what that means to have a multiplayer narrative game.
You're speaking my language. I like that.
Yeah.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, what do you think of Bethesda's Fallouts? With them picking up the torch.
Yeah, well, brilliant what they've done with it, right? I mean, they made it one of the biggest franchises in the world. I think going first or third person brings an immersion that you don't get with isometric, so I got to recognize that. That's why in Wasteland 3, for example, bringing the camera down for conversations, when you're having a conversation with a character and you're looking at him and he's talking to you and you're hearing the audio, it puts you more in the scene. So even when the camera comes out, that little guy is much more alive than had you not seen him. Right. So I like that part of it, but we don't want to give up the tactical side. So, but Bethesda certainly notes that as they know from the immersion, and then they did a more of an open world, of course, right? The kind of the freedom for what the player can do. That was to me like the biggest innovation. So I think they've done a fine job with the franchise.
So last question I've got to ask, I'm curious, you've just made so many great role-playing games, so many great games over the years. What do you think of the RPG genre as a whole now, and where do you think it's heading in the next half decade or 10 years?
Boy, it's so hard because I think in more incremental steps, right? Like I could say, okay, I want to work on multiplayer narrative and what that means, and then when I get done with that, there'll be something that dawns on me. It's hard for me to jump ahead 10 or 20 years in that regard, but I think the openness of the worlds is not going to go away. People like that freedom. I mean, the thing that makes a role-playing game good to me, and I think to most people, is that I play it the way I want, and then it pays off when you do those things, right? And so a lot of times in narrative games, they don't pay them off enough because it's difficult to pay off nuances of your decisions. It's easy to say, you need 9 pelts and you don't have them and you don't get the thing, right? I mean, but there's a payoff when you get them. That's a different, whole different vibe. But I have to say that virtual reality is. I mean, I'm not saying because we're working on a role-playing game in VR, but we talk about immersion and how powerful it is from a camera perspective. Well, now if I'm walking around in the world, that changes everything. And so I think that clearly that's where it's going to be going. And some people say, I don't know if I want to spend 10 hours in a game like that. But as the fidelity comes down, and I think it's inevitable that this is kind of where we're going.
Well, Brian Fargo, thank you so much. It was a pleasure learning more about your career. Wasteland, Fallout, Bard's Tale. All these games, Mario teaches typing, everything. Interplay was such a wonderful publisher for so many years. Appreciate having you on, Brian, and for much more on the best minds in the video game industry. Be sure to keep it tuned right here every week for new segments and every month for new episodes of IGN Unfiltered.